A very warm good afternoon to all of you. Honorable President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, I welcome you, sir, on behalf of IES Batch 2013. I will now request Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, Dr. Arvind Mayaram, sir, to kindly welcome the gathering.
We are grateful to Shri Pranab Mukherjee, Honorable President of India, for having agreed to meet the officer trainees of the 35th batch of the Indian Economic Service. Shri Pranab Mukherjee, having himself spearheaded the Ministry of Finance in the past, which is also the cadre controlling authority of the Indian Economic Service, is aware of the role and responsibilities of the officers of the Indian Economic Service. In fact, it was under his stewardship that the Indian Economic Service celebrated its Golden Jubilee in the year 2011-12. The various events that had marked the celebration of the Golden Jubilee year would not have been possible but for the unstinted support and encouragement that the service received from him. The 35th batch of the Indian Economic Service consists of 29 officer trainees, comprising 10 lady officer trainees and 19 gentlemen officer trainees. Given the fact that Masters in Economics is the minimum eligibility criterion for appearing in the IES exam, the batch is highly diverse in terms of the background, ranging from postgraduates from JNU, Delhi School of Economics, and the Indian Institutes of Technology. In view of the new and emerging challenges of a rapidly globalizing world, for which the Indian economy needs to be prepared in advance, the Department of Economic Affairs, being the cadre controlling authority of the service, has laid special emphasis on the capacity building of the officers. The training module is therefore designed in a manner so as to leverage on the strength of the officers and expose them to the emerging and possible challenges in the arena of public and economic policy. The training of the officer trainees commences with the foundation course in Hyderabad, followed by various institutional arrangements and a district attachment for about 2 months. The training also includes an overseas attachment with the Civil Service College Singapore, with a view to give them an exposure to the international best practices. As Secretary in the Department of Economic Affairs, I have observed the critical role played by the officers of this service on various economic policy issues. The contribution of the IES officers is widely recognized, since I get a large number of requests not only from the line ministries but also from various state governments, regulatory bodies, and other institutions for placement of the IES officers in their organizations. With this brief background, I would once again like to thank the Honorable President for agreeing to meet the budding officers and request Ms. Shalini Gupta and Shri Neeraj Kumar to take the floor to briefly share their training experiences. Thank you.
Honorable President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, Dr. Arvind Mayaram, Economic Advisor, Department of Economic Affairs, Shri Rajan Kumar, other dignitaries, members of Indian Economic Service, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. It's indeed a great privilege for us to be here and to speak on this occasion on behalf of the 35th batch of the Indian Economic Service. It's been more than 6 months into our training, and I would like to give a brief glimpse of our training expedition so far. Sir, we formally began our training on the 2nd of September 2013 with the foundation course at the Dr. Marichanna Reddy Institute of Human Resource Development, Hyderabad, along with participants from the other central services too. These 100 days at the foundation course were indeed the most memorable part of our training, covering components such as classroom modules on subjects of critical relevance, week-long village visit, trek to Nilgiris, and a number of extracurricular and co-curricular activities. This was followed by our induction level training phase 1, which we are currently undergoing at the Institute of Economic Growth, Delhi, since last couple of months. Here, I would like to appreciate the immense efforts that have gone towards designing our training program in line with the evolving development needs of the country. Apart from focusing on various technical and academic aspects, the training also includes various program evaluation modules and weekly field visits to places such as Center for Development of Telematics, Oil Refinery Panipat, Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, and National Thermal Power Station Badapur to provide us deep insights into the practical aspects of policy making. The program so far has broadened our horizons, made us more receptive and acceptable to challenges, had built upon our mental and physical endurance, and has inculcated in us a heightened sense of responsibility. Sir, we will soon be a part of the policy-making machinery of the Indian government, and we are looking forward to using our expertise to serve the nation to the best of our capacity. Thank you.
Honorable President, it is indeed a moment of honor and pride for me to share the overwhelming training experience of the 35th batch of Indian Economic Service probationers in your distinguished presence. Sir, we are truly elated to be joining Indian Economic Service in the era where complexities and challenges of Indian economy are surging and the requirement of effective decision making in the government, stringently guided by economic rationality with analytical reasoning, has become the need of the hour. In addition to the various attachments as mentioned earlier, the training module of Indian Economic Service also incorporates an international attachment with Civil Service College Singapore and a 2 months long district attachment. The rationale behind the international attachment is to get the officer trainees in tune with the best international practices, while the district attachment provides us practical insights into the ground realities. Sir, our training emphasizes on an all-around development comprising theoretical understanding of economic fundamentals with practical aspects of micro and macroeconomics, for public finances, and implementation of development policy and programs. We have been fortunate to have attained training from the experts in the domain of economic research and some senior most officers of Indian Economic Service. We now have about 9 months before we get our postings, and we look forward enthusiastically to provide our services towards the economic growth and development of this country, and to make India economically and globally powerful for the sustainable welfare of the people of India. We solemnly resolve yet again in your benign presence to live up to the expectations of the people of India and pledge to serve with utmost integrity, commitment and dedication. Jai Hind.
Good morning to all of you. Dr. Aravind Madam, Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, Sri Rajan Kumar, Advisor, Department of Economic Affairs, Officer Trainees of Indian Economic Service, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to Rashtrapati Bhavan, just on the threshold of your entering into a new career. I welcome you to this service after obtaining your master's degree in MA in economics. You had to qualify, and that qualifying examination is fiercely competitive. Your entry to the service speaks of your academic excellence and performance. I congratulate you. As Dr. Madam has pointed out, that I am not unknown to this service, because in my stint in the finance ministry, and apart from that in various other economic ministries, I had been immensely benefited by the services from the officers belonging to Indian Economic Service. Therefore, I value this service, and especially in the context of the new economic developments which are taking place all over the world. Economic advisors, policymakers, planners in this country will recall how gradually over the years since independence we developed our economy. A country immediately after liberation from 190 years colonial rule, in 1948 itself could formulate the first industrial policy resolution, which acted as a guideline of industrial policies and industrial development of this country for quite some time. Over the years, we have changed and adjusted, and the flexibility which we had in our policy has helped us considerably. There was a time curious students of the evolution of Indian economy and history of Indian economic development would find out that there was a time when we did not have any shortage in foreign exchange. The problem was how to spend the foreign exchange, and that was the challenge before the finance ministers of this country in the early years of independence. Of course, it was not because of the outcome of our international trade or our trading activities in the international trade. By quirk of history, British government borrowed heavily from Government of India during the 6 years of Second World War, and that pound sterling which we had as lender to the British government helped us in the initial stage for import of our essential industrial raw materials, food grains, and many other important things. Thereafter, there was a stage where there is acute foreign exchange crisis, and we had to take various measures. Over the years, we have changed our major approach and outlook in the economic policy from highly controlled economic development, highly controlled economic policy framework, especially after 1955, and through the Avadi Congress resolution of the socialistic pattern of society to conversion into Bhubaneswar Congress within 7 years, to declare that public sector would have the commanding height in our economy. We built up a huge infrastructure through public sectors and made huge investment through the planning process, where the resources were allocated on predetermined priority sectors. Thereafter, we recognized that this policy is not going to help us to compete with the world, though it provided us substantial industrial base, considerable extent of self-reliance in industrial production and manufacturing, improving technology, but the need and requirement of the society, especially to challenge the poverty and to reach the fruits of economic planning to the people, it was considered that private sector will be allowed to have a larger role in our economic development. Those small scale industries and entire agriculture sector was left for the private sector, and we got the benefit of first green revolution, and subsequently, as you are aware, we have entered into the second green revolution, which I announced in my budget in 2010-11, and which has started yielding results, because we are going to have substantial enhancement in production in the pulses, oilseeds, cereals, especially in the eastern region. But in 1991, the present Prime Minister, when he took over the responsibility at a very critical time of our Indian economy, as Finance Minister, it was almost U-turn in Indian economy. And thereafter, the stories are well known to you. Only one point I would like to suggest, that sometimes we feel little despondent at the slow growth rate. GDP in couple of years in the contemporary period. But I am not. Of course, the younger man has the liberty to feel despondent, to feel angry, because when we had reached 9% GDP growth, precisely in the last 10 years, it was 7.9%, 2003-4 to 2011-12. Naturally, if it is slowed down, come down to 4.9 or 4.8 or 4.5, there is reason to be angry. But an old man, when I knew that in the first half of the whole decade of, whole century of 1900, 20th century, from 1900 to 1950, Indian economy grew at the annual average rate of 1%. And after the end of colonial rule, up to 1979, from 1951, average Indian economic growth was 3.5%, which one eminent economist described sarcastically as Hindu growth rate. 80s I have seen, all these you have read in the texts of the economics, but still I am reminding that why I am not jittery or I do not feel despondent, because I have belief in the strong resilience of Indian economy. It has withstood many major crises, and I can give you just within less than 1.5 decade, a country which had to pledge its gold, monetized gold, to a foreign bank just to borrow a few $100 million. That was the state of economy. After that, the same country within 12 years could buy from International Monetary Fund more than 4 times of the quantum of gold which was pledged